So last week I did a demo of painting people street scenes, which was something that Val requested, but because Val wasn't here, you didn't get to see it, so that's why I thought I'd do it again. So you can see it. But there are a couple of things I forgot to. Hello, come to join us.
Yes.
Yes, good, right, yeah. Yeah, have a seat. Anyway, that's it. Yep. What's your name, please?
Anne.
Anne, that's right, of course, yeah. Yeah, so we've got Anne starting today.
Hello, Anne. Hello.
Yeah, so as I say, I'm going to do another quick demo of painting people in street scenes or people in locations. That'll be the plan. Yeah, we've got Anne's joining us today. When we come back in September, I've got a couple of other people who've been on the waiting list who will be joining us. I seem to have had quite a lot of interest just in the last week or two in the class. So I'm sort of mulling it over how many people we can sort of manage in the class. But we have had a couple of people leave over the last few months. So in the last couple of months have been a little bit quieter, so I thought I'd just take a few people off. I may possibly at some point in the future reinstate the afternoon class that I used to have. Which just depends on how much interest I have, to be honest. I need sort of enough interest and enough commitment, really. But if there is interest, I'm quite happy to do that. Okay, so that's that. So yeah, perhaps I'll do a little bit of a survey and see. Yeah, so the last week of our term, as it were, or session before the summer, back the first week in September. So I think it's the 7th. It's somewhere around there. So that's when we'll be back. So that will go in the emails. I will also plan a few more outdoor sessions for when we're back in September, because that went, particularly Fridays, went really well at Paper Mill Lock. So I brought a couple of pictures in just to show you. So that was, I made a start on a painting on a Paper Mill Lock, so this will need quite a bit more work. But it's really kind of underpainting, got a little bit of drawing down and some of the different parts that they're really developing. So that was that one. I've brought a couple of pictures that have got people in them. So this one, it's not quite finished yet, it needs a bit more work, particularly there's highlights on the bridge to go in a little bit more. But this was, a couple of weeks ago, I painted this up in London. So this is Millennium Bridge. And it was quite an interesting day because you had some nice strong clouds, but bright sunshine. So you've got these nice contrasts. And one of the things that I missed out mentioning last week was really lighting, and how sometimes when you're painting figures, you'll get like the light catching in a certain direction. So I think in this case, it was coming over this way. So that's that one. This one, by contrast, was a very flat day. So, it's just very, they're mostly just sort of like one, there's not a strong sense of light and dark. So it may be that some of the figures have got slightly lighter colours on, wearing slightly lighter clothes. But there isn't a strong sense of there being a light side and dark side. So the lighting is a different one. And then this one is a picture that I've been working on a couple of sessions up in London. And years ago I took a photograph, which was this photograph. And I quite just like the idea of the people sitting on the, in the little park in front of the Tower of London. So that's my kind of inspiration. And I noticed this morning how much the trees have grown since I took that photograph. So I don't know where I took that one. That must have been a long time ago. But it's particularly, the strong sense of light, really, light on the figure. So I might just use a little bit of that and maybe another one as a demo today. Right, so move that out the way. And get rid of that. So, as I mostly use oil paints, I'll just stick with the oils. I'm afraid I've forgotten the water containers today. So I've got one jam jar, and you just have to use the mugs, and I'll give them a good wash at the end. Right, so something like maybe this little grouping here. Again, they're quite a way away, so they're almost like quite abstracted shapes. So I don't really need to worry about trying to draw features, but what I would look for is areas of light and dark. So I'm going to mix two two sort of tones of flesh tone, as it were. So a shadow flesh tone and a light flesh tone. So I'm using some crimson and some cadmium yellow and a little bit of brown, just for the, again, for the shadow side, particularly for the shadow side. So that can be that one. And then similar sort of colours, but with some white for the highlight side. So that can be the highlights. And might even need a bit lighter still. Let's get a bit of rag. So if I was going to draw maybe this chap here or this chap here, just make that even darker still, maybe a tiny bit of blue in there as well. And I'll try and draw them a little bit bigger. So if I was, sketching this from life, the way I go about it, I either do a line, almost like a line drawing, which would be something like that. Just do it a little bit stronger so you can see it. So just using thin paint, do something like that. Or if they're far enough away, I would just build it up with paint marks, which is what I'm going to do here. So that's a little bit too dark, just add a little bit of white to that. With the oils, I much prefer to go too dark than too light, because I can always paint some lighter tones into it. And that usually looks quite effective. And then we've got a whole area of shadow here. And photographs can be quite difficult to read sometimes. That might be his arm or a bag. Let's just take that out of plastic so we can see it a bit better. And then the rest of him's just going to be behind there somewhere. And then a little bit of highlight for his arm. So some of his arm is in shadow, should be kind of further back here. And then we've got some highlights here. Just make that lighter still. Particularly here, the light is just really catching there. And there's a tiny bit of light just catching the back of his head, so we can just slightly lighten that. But that would probably enough for him. Just look for any shadows, and it's really difficult to see any actually. So I think it must be quite high. Yeah, the light's coming this way, so I'd expect shadows to come over this way if there were any shadows. And this other chap, again, I can just paint almost like a kind of blob shape for his head. And then most of his back is catching the light. A little bit like there, tiny bit lighter still. Go lighter. I generally put the darks in first, but sometimes, particularly if I'm painting from life, it works just as well sometimes to put the highlights in first. A bit of highlight, and then I'll pop some darker shadows just in here. Shape that way and his other hand about there. So that's basically what I try and look for. Just shapes and lights and darks. And occasionally there'll be little bits of colour to pop in. But if you concentrate, I think, on the light and dark first, and then add any bits of colour where they're needed.
Very easy, Paul.
It
Oh, it's so easy.
Just like that.
takes lots of practice. Yeah, I mean, it's easy from a photo. It's hard when people are moving, really. That's the hard bit. I find hard. Is that okay? Any questions? Any other questions? Okay, right, okay. Carry on then. If anybody needs a jar of water, there's one there that I can get around to. So I'll just move this out of the way and then